Go ahead.
Welcome into a special edition of Pressbox Live, a special trade deadline edition of Pressbox Online. I'm Stan the Fan Charles of Pressbox, PressboxOnline.com, and with me is Luke Jackson, the managing editor of Pressbox and PressboxOnline.com. And Luke, before we dig into a rather meaty conversation about what the Orioles did at the deadline, trading 9 players and getting a return of 16 players if you include draft pick Slater DeBrew, the number 37 pick in the draft, which we got for Brian Baker. Let's talk about the amazing amount of deals that were pulled off today. So many times we get to a deadline or the winter baseball meetings and fans are excited. This was like one of the greatest days of baseball trading if not probably the most prolific that I've ever seen.
Yeah, it was a wild last couple hours for sure. I think the most surprising move that went down was that Carlos Correa went back to the Astros after it seemed like they weren't going to be able to match up on the money. The Twins and the Astros, turns out they did, and now he's going to go back to Houston where he still lives in the offseason, and he's going to play third base. So I don't know
Yep.
what that means for our boy Ramon Urias. It seemed like when they traded for him yesterday, that he was going to be the full-time third baseman, because at the time it seemed like the Correa stuff had cooled,
Yeah.
and then it heated back up today. And so I don't know where that leaves. That probably leaves Ramon pretty much where he was here.
Yeah. Yep. And dependent upon and with Correa's injury history, he'll
It's a good
get
point. Yeah.
a
I
fair
don't know if
amount of
I want
bats.
Correa playing every single day.
And he can play second base a little
Hmm.
bit, and he can occasionally DH or play first base. Um, I'll miss Ramon Urias. I have to admit, he was much better than I thought. Say midway through the 23 season, I sort of said, "Okay, we'll move on from this guy now that we have real talent." But he had some staying power, and developed an affection for watching him play ball.
Yeah, the defense was a little up and down, but when he was locked in defensively and healthy, he was a really good defender at third
Yeah,
base. Won a Gold Glove, I think, in 2022, and the bat uh, came and went a little bit too, but that could get pretty hot as well. And you look at the total package, pretty solid fifth infielder for a long time on some pretty good Orioles teams. And he's one of the diamonds in the rough you can find when you give guys opportunities during a rebuild. And he was one of those guys who really took advantage of his opportunity that he was given, I think, at first in 2020, and then the bat really came on in 2021. So that's one of the things that can happen in a deep rebuild, is that you find guys like a Ramon Urias.
yeah, no question about it. And as we talked, you and I've talked off the air, Mike Mike Elias found an awful lot of relief pitchers during the rebuild. Javier Lopez, Cole Sulser, Danny Coulombe. I mean, he kept picking up and adding Yenier Cano, who became very valuable for a while. And it's a shame he just hasn't been able to develop any of those pitchers
Yeah,
on
and
his.
those pickups sort of dried up in the
Yep.
past couple years, and they leaned on sort of erratic veterans like Sir Anthony Dominguez and Gregory Soto and Brian Baker, who I guess was one of the guys that they
That's
cleverly
one of
picked
the
up a
guys
few
they picked
years
up
ago,
from
and
Toronto.
and yeah, and they brought in Andrew Kittredge to try to fill in a gap, and they tried to bring in Jeff Hoffman to fill a gap. So yeah, like that well is sort of run dry.
In fairness to Mike Elias, somebody like
Hmm.
Tanner Scott was getting close to earning real money with the Orioles.
Hmm.
In other words, he had been around 3 or 4 years. He was going to be arbitration eligible, and he was starting to put up some interesting numbers. He was up and down a little bit toward the end, but I think had David Rubenstein's group owned the team at that time, I don't think Mike would have been so quick to move on from Tanner Scott.
Yeah, they ended up getting a draft pick for Tanner Scott, and it turned into Judd Fabian, who is now at
That's right.
AAA,
Yeah.
and he's a tooled up kid. He's going to make it to the major leagues, if not with the Orioles, then somebody.
Yeah.
He's a good defensive outfielder. He's got pop. Like I say, he's a tooled up kid. He's I don't know if he's stalled out at some point at AA, AAA, that sort of area, but I saw him a good bit at Aberdeen. He'll make it to the major leagues in some capacity.
One other huge trade today was the trade between the Sacramento Baseball Club, the
Right,
A's,
right.
uh, moving on from Mason Miller and
Yep,
J.P. Sears. They got a nice package back
yep.
in return. And it's amazing how uh, AJ Preller, who I have to admit, I used to bash him a lot that what has he really accomplished? When he sets his mind, you start hearing rumors that he's going to get somebody. He's pretty darn, he must be like 75% of the time he gets his man. And he
And
got Mason Miller.
he doesn't aim for upgrades around the margins. He aims
No,
for some big names, and he always seems to have the prospect capital to get those big names.
it's
Somehow, some way,
unbelievable.
he's always got stuff to trade. Now I thought, what are we calling them? Oakland? Not Oakland.
They're
Vegas?
the
No, not
A's. That's
Vegas.
how
Okay,
baseball
so the
refers them
A's. We're
to.
just
They're the
calling them
A's.
the A's. So they decide to hit the eject button on Miller now, which is interesting because they have him under club control for a while still. But when a reliever or really any pitcher throws as hard as he does, there's a thought that he might be a ticking time bomb, right?
Yes.
And so they might have thought that this is the best time to cash out on him rather than wait a year and try to do it a year from now, this time next year when he
When
might
he's
not
suffering
be
from a
hurt, right?
Tommy
He might be
John.
healthy. Yeah. So I wasn't totally surprised
I
that
wasn't. Yeah.
that they decided to cash out on him. I thought they did very well with the package they got in return. And so that tells me that they probably made the right move to move on from Miller now. Not that he couldn't help them in the meantime. I mean, he's when he's on, he's a dominant closer. I mean, it's
Yeah.
really hard to find guys who throw as hard as Miller does.
Between that trade and the trade where AJ Preller picked up both Ryan
Mhm.
O'Hearn and Ramon Laureano, he basically traded his entire. It was almost like Mike Ditka trading all those draft picks for Ricky Williams. He traded his entire draft class almost from 2024
Mhm.
to get Mason Miller and and a couple of them for 25, I think, in the Laureano and O'Hearn trade.
Yeah, so I assume that O'Hearn will play a lot of first base and DH because it's not like he's going to play right field over Tatis.
No,
And he's going to play a lot of first base and DH against right-handed pitching. And then would think that Laureano will play left field, certainly against lefties, and he'll probably play defense late in games for Gavin Sheets. And Gavin Sheets starts for them against right-handed pitching, but he's not really an outfielder.
right.
He's one of those Trey Mancini types who's a first baseman who has been told
Yeah,
to play the outfield his entire career. So
yeah,
that's what I suspect that and look, Laureano's played every day for the past 3 months and he's played really, really well. And
played
so
very
if
well.
and at this point in his career, I don't know if he can play a high level center field anymore. He can certainly throw well enough to play any of the three outfield positions. But a little curious about what their plans are for Ramon. But both of those guys can really help the Padres down the stretch because their lineup needed what those guys provide.
It'll be interesting. Laureano is one of those guys. I don't expect Cedric Mullins to be back with the Orioles.
Right.
It would not shock me if somehow Ryan O'Hearn, as a free agent,
Hmm.
shows a desire to come here, and I don't think he's looking to hit the giant jackpot. I think if he got like a 3 year, 30 to $35 million deal, he'd take it. And I don't know if that would be in the Orioles'
I don't
interest.
think so because I'm not buying Sammy Basayo at this point as a regular catcher.
Yeah.
And so I think Sammy Basayo will take over that Ryan O'Hearn role of first
Okay.
base DH. That's what I think.
That's a reasonable. But remember, building a clubhouse is also important, and I think Ryan O'Hearn did have a significant role in that clubhouse, as did Ramon Laureano. So let's dig in at one name that didn't move. That it looked, I think, one of the most disappointing teams out of this whole thing. If I added it up correct, it looks like the Los Angeles Dodgers, who are being who are being chased by the San Diego Padres now. Uh, am I right? All they picked up was Brock Stewart and Alex Call after the
Yeah, I think
rumors were
that's
hot and
correct.
heavy that they were going to go after Alcantara.
Yep.
They were going to get Stephen Kwan, and they didn't end up. Oh, and or a big time reliever. They didn't do much of anything.
So you mentioned Sandy not moving, and
Yeah,
I don't think any controllable starters really moved, did they? And I assume that the prices were just too expensive. I know that the Red Sox were
Dustin May moved, and he's not controllable. He's a
right.
free agent. Is Hauser controllable?
That's a good point, Hauser. Yeah,
And Taj Bradley?
Taj Brett. There you go.
Okay,
Yeah,
those
but
two guys
none of the
moved.
controllable arms, I guess, that we were talking about in the weeks ahead of the deadline moved.
One of the shockers, and seriously, this gets back to something we'll dig into with Mike Elias, because one of my biggest disappointment in the deadline. And by the way, we jumped in so heavy. I forgot to tell everybody that this special edition, trade deadline edition of Press Box Live, is brought to you by the Costas Inn, now with two great locations. The old one at 4100 North Point Boulevard, and the new one at the Timonium Fairgrounds above the right up with the OTB on the grandstand there level at Timonium. Same great food, same great service, and a kind of really interesting venue for the new Costas Inn. But one of the pitchers that I was disappointed the Orioles didn't somehow show some interest in is the Kansas City Royals ended up picking up that left-hander from the Pirates. Is it Bailey
Oh, Bailey
Falter?
Falter. That was another starter with club control. There,
Yeah,
that's another one. So actually, I just looked it up. Adrian Hauser is not. He's a free agent at the end of
he's
the
a
year.
free agent.
But Taj Bradley and Bailey Falter would be two. And
Yeah,
Bailey Falter was a guy that in Philadelphia he was not very good.
yeah,
And then he goes to Pittsburgh. And I remember last year thinking, is this the same guy from Philadelphia? They really turned him into something. He had 3 years of club control. I don't know. I,
yeah.
I don't know why they were in a hurry to get rid of him.
Yeah, I'm not sure. They would look like they were Ben Cherrickson was doing a similar deal to what Mike Elias was doing, which was hoarding a lot of
Yeah.
prospects. And speaking of which, let's dig into it, Luke. All told, uh, going back to the Brian Baker trade,
Hmm.
Mike Elias moved the 9 players that we kind of expected would
Right.
move. I mean, Baker moved earlier
Right.
than we thought, and Baker had some team control left, but he moved Brian Baker, and then he moved 8 players with that were going to be free agents or that the club wanted to move on from, and those included Gregory Soto, who would have been a free agent,
Hmm.
Sir Anthony Dominguez, who would have been a free agent. I think Ramon Urias had 1 more year,
One more year.
1 more year club control. Kittredge had an option that I fully expected when the smoke cleared last night.
Hmm.
You and I talked, and I said, it looks like they kept held on to Kittredge. And then 2 hours later, they dealt Kittredge. So Kittredge had a year left. Mullins was going to be a free agent.
Hmm.
O'Hearn was going to be a free agent. Ramon Laureano had 1 year of club control. The Orioles
Hmm.
had an option. And then Charlie Morton, who was not going to be back, he was a 1 year signing.
Hmm.
And they moved those 9 players, and including that draft pick we talked about a little earlier, number 37, a competitive balance pick that we picked up from the Rays, Slater DeBrew, including him. I count 16 players that the
Hmm.
Orioles got And when I say players, they are all prospects.
Yep.
And by that, I don't mean that they're all definite major league players or will be, but they're all prospects. They did not receive one veteran player
Right.
in the mix at all. Your thoughts on what the return was, and we'll go trade by trade eventually. But overall, what do you think Mike Elias accomplished here, Luke?
I think Mike did what he needed to do, uh, roughly. He needed to inject some life into his farm system, which, frankly, over the past 12 to 24 months has gotten worse. And as it stood, he really didn't have as much ammo that he needed to have to make the trades that he needed to make this offseason and beyond to help this major league roster. And I think now they have more depth in their minor league system to make it easier to make those trades. That's what I think was the primary objective of this trade deadline, to restock their farm system, at least the depth of their farm system to some extent, to make it easier to do trades to help the major league team.
Now,
Um, that's I that's what I think their primary objective was. And I think in a perfect world, a lot of these players who they picked up, so they picked up all these guys, and I'm not going to act like I know anything about any of the prospects that they picked up. I'll see plenty of them in Aberdeen in the weeks ahead, and I'll
yep.
have more for you, Stan, once I get eyes on them. But I can guarantee you they specifically targeted each of these guys because they like their certain traits. It's not like they've been in pro ball a ton, because most of them were like 20 to 24 draft picks that they picked up. I know one of them was a 17-year-old Dominican shortstop, but they have certain traits that they like, and the certain traits that they think that they can develop to make these kids more valuable prospects. And in perfect world, like a year from now, this time next year, you're trading a few of them for help for the major league team at the deadline next year. So that's a
When
perfect
they're
world.
contending, when they're best
Yes, when they're
contending.
contending, that's in a perfect world. But as we also mentioned, now comes the hard part. They've got a huge, heavy lift ahead of them in the next 8 months ahead of opening day next year, because they have a lot of pitching they have to get. A lot. They need to figure out the entire bullpen. They need starting pitch. It's a heavy lift ahead. But I think that this was a decent enough start.
It looks to me like out of a 13-man, roster of pitchers next
Mhm.
spring when they
Mhm.
come north, I think we can say that, God willing, Kyle Bradish is healthy. He's
Yep.
part of it. Taylor Rogers, I mean, what's his first
Trevor.
name? Trevor Rogers and Dean Kramer right now. All three of those look to be part of it. What
Right.
was disappointing to me, and I really mean this, I wrote that column the other day specifying that I thought they should have done whatever was possible to acquire Dustin May, who has to me, a giant upside.
Hmm.
Um, to have lessened the heavy lifting that they need to do in the rotation, because I don't think you can count on Grayson Rodriguez being anything meaningful next year.
Right.
If he is, fantastic. I'm not saying you cut ties with him or anything like that, but he's got a lot to prove now that he can ever be a meaningful 170 inning guy. Okay. And if he pitches next year at all, what would you hope to get? 100 innings out of him?
Jeez.
80 innings?
I don't
I,
I don't know the answer to that.
so
I don't even
so
I
so
don't
he's like let's say at most he's a half a starter,
right.
and you need like 9 starters, in my opinion, in this day and age.
Shoot, he might even be a reliever at this point.
Yeah, Cade Povich,
Yep.
that's not out of the realm of possibility.
Right.
Cade Povich, don't know what we have with him. And now we're getting so late into the season, we have the Buck Showalter warning that you don't want to judge somebody in September.
Now, when would
So,
Cade ever, why and how would Cade ever fool you in September? He's never done that, Stan. Never.
so anyway, you've got Cade Povich. We have no idea really long term what Albert Suarez is. He was terrific, a terrific story last year. Braden Young has teased us a couple times out of like five starts.
Hmm.
He's looked on two occasions. He's looked very representative, and I think one of those was against the Mets, right?
Right.
And one of them was against
Toronto.
Toronto. So two decent hitting teams. It's not
Yeah.
as if he did it
And he's going
against.
to get a long look here
He's going to
because he
get a
was
long. He's got a
he
lot
was
of
called
years.
up today with Eflin going back on the IL. He's going to get
Yep.
a long look here in the next 2 months. I think
Yeah.
you're going to see him get 10, 11, 12 starts here to close out the season.
Do you see? Do you see any way that Eflin or Sagano is back with this team next year?
So our colleague Glenn Clark was tweeting about the possibility of Eflin getting a qualifying offer. I just don't see that.
No.
This is Eflin's fourth IL stint.
Yeah.
He's been pretty bad this year. I understand he's been on the IL 3 times.
Yeah.
Uh, I so the qualifying offer.
That would be like having the option to let Tyler O'Neill walk and saying, "No, I gotta have
Yeah.
one more look at him." And
So, but the qualifying offer number was 21 million last year, so it's going to be more. So it's
it's
probably going
going
to be
to be
about
like
22
22
this
and a
year.
half million
If the
dollars.
Orioles offered him a 1 year, $22 million
He
deal,
would sign
he
that
would sign
before
that in
the
a
offer
second.
was. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. And so I just don't see the Orioles going down that route. And because you're giving the qualifying offer to get a draft pick, I just don't see any scenario where they could possibly get a draft
Not a
pick to do
chance
that
in
this year.
hell that
Yeah,
they're giving him. And I think Sagano, who I think was an interesting signing, thinking that they were going to do more than they did.
right.
I thought he was an interesting signing, but to me, he ended up failing the test.
I wouldn't say failing the test. He was signed to be the fifth starter on the club and to get them to around this point
Sure,
when they
Charlie
hope.
Morton wasn't the fifth starter.
And he was signed to get them to around this time of year, and
Yep.
I'm sure they were hoping to upgrade on him
Yep.
over him around this time. And I think he pretty much did that. And
Yeah.
I think he's done roughly what was expected, right?
Would you
Uh,
have any interest in bringing him back at the compensation level of 12 or 13 million dollars?
no,
No,
not at that. No, not at
no.
what he made this
At
year.
7,
At that point, I think he would just go home and pitch
yeah,
in Japan again.
yeah,
Yeah.
probably, probably. All right. So again, that's to me the biggest sin of what Mike Elias has done here. I can't pretend to know all of these arms. I did do a little homework. I read something about one of the pitchers. I couldn't believe, Luke, that we acquired a 23-year-old who was pitching for Port St. Lucie.
Okay.
Okay. That would be like 23 years old at Aberdeen, correct?
Right. No,
Okay. Lower
it
than
was Marvin.
Aberdeen.
I think
It was
Delmarva.
lower than Aberdeen.
Yeah.
His name is Ramon, Raimon, Romain Gomez. Uh, he's 23 years old. And I heard that he threw a pitch in that league that was clocked this year at 104.5 miles per hour,
Yeah. So
which
I
was,
think he's a converted position player, which is
yeah,
why he's a little bit older
right.
with serious, serious arm strength.
Yes.
And so
So,
I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing him in Aberdeen
yeah,
before the season's over. But that
yeah,
is, I mean,
I'm
that's
looking forward
arm
to it. They
strength.
said, and that stadium in Port St. Louis, Lucie has the StatCast, cameras and guns and all that stuff, the highest level. And they said it was the fastest pitch in that stadium.
And it
Uh,
was legit too.
yeah.
Like
And
that
it
was
was,
stadium on 104. That was legit.
and he threw a bunch of pitches where he averaged 103 or something. So this is fascinating. Ramon Gomez. They also picked up a 22-year-old who is in double A named Anthony Nunez and a 20-year-old pitcher who I think is an A ball, Chandler Marsh, in that trade. The Kittredge trade, they got a 17-year-old shortstop named Wilfrey Dela Cruz, who is 6'2". He's 17 years old, and he is not from San Pedro de Macorís. He's from St. Peter's de Marguerite. Okay. But he's a 17-year-old shortstop in the Cubs organization. I'm sure that Mike and Kobe Perez have some familiarity with this kid. And
Yeah,
I'm
he was a
sure he
bonus
is a
baby.
guy. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
sure he was a
I
big
think
bonus
last
guy.
year he
They
got like
paid him. They paid him close to $3 million,
yeah, yeah. I think it was
2.3,
between two and three
2.5.
million that they paid him, and so yeah, I imagine that Kobe and his crew are very, very familiar with this kid.
Yeah, and are probably ecstatic and doing cartwheels. Ramon Urias, who was traded late last night to the Houston Astros just before the Kittredge deal, they got back. I'm guessing we know that the Orioles have had a Palmer before on their pitching staff, Jim Palmer. This guy's name is Twine Palmer. I've never heard, and I'm sure he's the first Twine to ever be a Baltimore Oriole. He's 6'5" right-handed pitcher. And is it possible he's 20 years old? He was a 19th round draft pick in 2024 by the Astros.
Hmm.
And he apparently is one of these guys that has a very unique delivery, Luke.
Yeah, so yeah, he's got some funk, and he's interesting because apparently
This
he's
sounds like a
generated.
Sig Meidel special.
This is a Sig. This sounds to me like a Sig special where he's a big dude, and apparently the metrics are very favorable in terms of the soft contacts that he's generated. I don't think he's given up a home run this year, so
In like
that's
45
like
innings.
just doesn't give up much hard contact, and he's got a little funky delivery. He is straight over the top. I don't know if our listeners and our viewers remember Josh Colmentor at
Who
all.
did he pitch for?
He pitched for a while in Arizona, and he had a
Was
funky
he ever
delivery
with the
where he was like
Nationals?
straight over the top,
Okay, I don't
straight,
remember him
and so
very
and
well.
it creates some different sort of arm slot and things like that that hitters don't normally see. So, yes, I'm sure I'll see him in Aberdeen too.
All right. For Sir Anthony Dominguez, the Orioles acquired a third round pick out of Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, right?
Yeah, so the only thing that popped off about him to me was that he's probably
This is Jerron Watts Brown.
I imagine that he's very friendly with the Holiday family because Jackson's uncle coached him in college.
Okay. Okay.
So there's something.
Okay. Okay. That's interesting. He will most likely pitch, and I one of the ironies of the trade was that Dominguez walked right across the
Yeah.
stadium to the Toronto locker room. This kid's team, the
Hmm.
Toronto farm system, was in Bowie.
Right.
So he just before the game walked across and became
Yeah.
a member of the Bowie Bay Sox. So maybe we'll go down and see him pitch.
Yeah.
But he's a third rounder,
Yeah.
and Mike Elias never saw fit to really pick a pitcher other than Jackson Bowmeister, who
Yeah.
was a second round pick, never really took any pitchers as low as three.
Right. And so we were chatting about this prior to going on the air. This was a little throwback to how Mike built the organization the first few years he was here, where he drafted hitters high and he traded for arms in bulk. And
Yeah.
that's the same thing he did in the past 3 weeks. So Mike and Sig went right back to their wheelhouse.
Okay. Very well stated. For Brian Baker, we already mentioned, and that trade was already a month ago. Boy, how the world has changed for the Tampa Bay Rays since they acquired Baker. I'm not blaming him,
Right.
but he was really having by far his best major league season.
Hmm.
He's been terrible there. And you brought up something very interesting. He really hasn't been the same since the Orioles used him in three straight games.
You know what other season that happened into him? 2023. Remember, Brandon used him. I think I wasn't three straight games. It was like three out of
Four out
four
of five, or
or four out of five or something. And we made note of it at the time. We're like, wonder how this will go after this. And it didn't go
didn't go
great.
well. Yeah.
And he's somebody, he throws very hard. He's a big guy, throws very hard, throws with a lot of effort. You got to take care of him. You can't, and when he gets on good runs, it's easy to overuse him. And this year, Brandon and Tony leaned on him very heavily, and by the time they traded him, he was among the league leaders in appearances.
Yeah,
Like he's not that kind of guy that can be a league leader in appearances all year. It's not going to go great.
yeah.
And I that
He's
was
a 60, he's a 60 appearance guy, not a 75.
no,
Yeah,
no. He's not a 70 plus appearance kind of guy.
yeah. For Brian Baker, we've already mentioned this a couple times. We picked up the number 37 pick, a compensation, a competitive balance pick, Slater DeBron, and they just signed him to a rather hefty bonus. Was it
Yeah,
in
it was a
excess of 4 million?
4 million, which is like mid to late first round money. So that's a over slot bonus, and that's of the haul that they got. He's probably the best prospect out of that bunch.
Yeah, they he is somebody they clearly were targeting at that
Yes,
when they
yes, and
traded
apparently
Baker.
the Nationals had their eyes on him as well.
Right.
And remember, they cut a deal at number one overall, and apparently DeBrun was one of the guys that they really had eyes on, and the Orioles scooped him before they had a chance.
Okay. For Gregory Soto to the Mets, we also picked up two pitchers in that deal. Wellington Aracena, who's 20 years old, and Cameron Foster, who I'm, I can't read my notes here. Um, Aracena's the one that really looks like a pitcher. Foster looks like a Foster looks like a another Colin Selby.
So the Orioles just announced that they actually acquired a left-handed pitcher named Dietrich Enns from the Detroit Tigers for cash. He's a 34-year-old.
They just
Uh,
DFA'd Dietrich. Yeah,
okay, so I assume that he'll go into their bullpen, I guess.
yeah. He can do both. He could start or he'll be an interesting guy as a left-hander.
They
Yeah.
need healthy arms.
I gotta can I give you some breaking news?
Go ahead.
Mike called me
Oh,
before we went on the air because
okay.
my history of being a submarine pitcher at
Hmm.
Oriole Fantasy Camp
Right.
is kind of the stuff legends are made of. You
Hmm.
know, didn't give up an earned run in 14 plus innings down at Fantasy Camp. But
Is this when Fantasy Camp was in Lauderdale?
no, this was Fantasy Camp was in Sarasota.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm not sure Fantasy Camp was ever in Lauderdale. I think
Okay.
they always had Fantasy Camp in Sarasota, even when the team wasn't practicing there. And there is rumors that Fantasy Camp may be coming back. I can't confirm that yet, but I know a lot of people will be excited about that. But where were we? We were talking about who were we just talking about?
Dietrich Ends. That's who we were talking
Oh,
about.
Dietrich Enns. Okay.
Yeah.
But this guy Wellington Aracena looks to be the main arm of that deal.
Yeah. Yeah. A big arm, apparently. He started for Delmarva, I think yesterday or the day before. So he's already been thrown into the mix.
All right. Again, for the go now flipping forward to the Ryan O'Hearn Ramon Laureano trade. Luke, the Orioles got a 6'8" left-handed pitcher named Boston Bateman, who apparently was like, wasn't he a second round pick of the Padres last year
Yeah.
in the 24 draft?
Mhm. Yeah.
They also got two other pitchers, Tyson Neighbor, um, who's from K State, and they got a pitcher named Tanner Smith, who is 6'6", Luke, and he pitched at Harvard. So the total IQ of the organization just
Have
went
you
up.
noticed that a lot of these pitchers they picked up in these trades are pretty big dudes? They're like 6'5",
They're
six
very
six,
big
6'7".
dudes. They also, seriously, they picked up a Twine, a Boston, and a Cobb, who's not a pitcher. But anyway, we got all told for Ryan O'Hearn and Ramon Laureano. We got three pitchers and three other position players. Brian Butterworth, who I wonder if he's related to the coach Butterworth, who was one that was very friendly with Buck Showalter and
Mhm.
was a coach for Buck a couple times along the way. Got a high school infielder named Cobb Hightower, and then a 18th round draft pick, an infield outfielder named Victor Figueroa. So all told, 6 players back for Ryan O'Hearn and Ramon Laureano. Luke has clued us into the fact that Dietrich Enns was traded to the Orioles, but he is not the player that we got for Charlie Morton.
Right.
He was a cash pickup, I think,
Yeah.
by the Orioles.
And you said he had been DFA'd.
I think he had been DFA because the Tigers, Luke picked up, I think, 7 total pitchers over the last couple days. The Tigers
I'll
picked
be
up,
honest with you. I was a little disappointed with the Tigers haul. They've only got Scooble for a year and a half more, and I thought that this might have been a time for them to pounce. And I don't know. I was disappointed with it, and I know they
well,
haven't
they
been
picked
playing
up,
well.
picked up Chris Paddock, Charlie
Hmm.
Morton are starting pitchers. They picked up Rafael Montero, that's the guy Houston gave all the money to, right?
And then he went to Atlanta,
Yep.
mixed results, and
Yeah,
now
they
he's
picked
just with
up they
Detroit.
picked up Randy Dobnik,
Uh-huh.
Cody Hoyer, and Kyle Finnegan. And I'm missing one other pitcher. I think they picked up 7 total pitchers. But not a great haul there for them. But
Feels like they're a bat short, feels like they're a starter short. I don't
yeah,
know. Uh, they were on pace for like a 100 win season, and but
yeah,
you look at that roster aside from Scooble, it didn't scream a 100 win roster. I don't know.
no,
I thought that they could have done more to fortify themselves, considering that Scooble's probably not going to be there beyond next year. That's all.
yeah, yeah. Uh, well, the Tigers seem to have some money in that organization, so I wouldn't rule that out that he's there in Detroit. Let me get a word in about the Costa Sin,
Hmm.
all right? We've been going for close to 40 minutes already, but let me get a word in about the Costa Sin. We always do this when Ross is on with us. We always put up our thumbs. And Luke, I'm going to ask you to
Okay,
participate.
hold
I
on.
know you
Okay.
don't get paid extra for this, but so we got 4 thumbs tonight.
Yeah.
And that's pretty good when you got 2 people and you got 4 thumbs between them. Costassin is always a thumbs up place, and now there's 2 of them. The old location is the one you want to keep in mind if you're definitely having crabs. Your party, your group, your family outing is going to have steamed crabs. The Costassin at 4100 North Point Boulevard is where to go. 410-477-1975 is the number for reservations. Also to check price point, size, and availability. The, the old Costas Inn, and old, I don't mean bad. They've been there for 53, 54 years at the Costas Inn Boulevard. But some things are new and improved, and the new Costas Inn is over at the Timonium Fairgrounds up above the grandstand, right next to the OTB there at Timonium Fairgrounds. Same great food, the only difference is they don't serve steamed crabs there. Great crab cakes, great crab soup, and the entire menu that you can get. Great daily specials and great service and affordable and a homey atmosphere there. Plenty of TVs to watch all your sports at the Costas Inn. All right. Now back to wrapping us up today. Luke, well, you got the name of the pitcher that the Orioles got for Charlie Morton.
Oh, do I?
Well, it's
Oh,
Micah Ashman.
Micah Ashman, yes.
He's a relief
Left-hander.
pitcher.
Yeah, left-hand reliever in Double A, tall guy, six
Yeah.
seven. Went to University of Utah, and so he was in last year's draft. So I assume that he will go to Bowie.
All right. That sounds good. It looks like Mike, whatever we want to say about him, it looks like he watched this pitching staff sort of disintegrate this year,
Hmm.
with injuries. And I think he was personally somewhat, and I think he has to take some of the blame. And I don't know whether it's a Mike picking who he's picking or his development people, but they've drafted 51 pitchers since he's been here. Not a lot of heavy duty draft capital invested in pitching. But you think they would have at least had two or three really major league ready between the international program and who they've tried to develop draft picks. They just didn't have any answers for that bullpen when it went south.
No, you're absolutely right. And you know, yeah, I mean,
I mean,
it
it's
just
going to be. I'm not trying to be funny. It's going to be fascinating to see how they close out games because starters, whether you're Kyle Bradish or Dean Kramer or
Trevor,
Trevor Rogers.
Taylor,
There's
Tyler, Trevor.
there's so many Rogers being traded today. There's Taylor and Tanner Rogers. Anyway, Trevor Rogers, no matter what, they're all 6 inning pitchers. So you've got 9 to 12 outs to negotiate to get through the games. And you've got Yennier Cano, who looks like he's like on his last legs as a major league
Oh
pitcher.
man, it happens fast for relievers, man. He was
Yeah,
an all-star this time 2 years
right.
ago, and now he looks unusable.
Yeah. And I don't know how I don't remember, I didn't pay attention how old he said he was, but he's easily somebody that could be 5 years older than he told the club, told the Twins when they signed him. So anyway, you've got Aiken and him, and then who else is out there? Bautista probably won't pitch again this year. You got
Yeah, I doubt he pitches
You
again.
got Corbin Martin. This
Keegan
guy,
Aiken,
this
does he
guy
close? I don't know.
Keegan, he might get.
He's the most experienced arm out there.
I think Martin's going to get an opportunity to close. I think Corbin Martin will get an opportunity to close.
He's got good stuff.
Yeah.
You know,
Uh, this Dietrich Enns will be out there.
the
Uh,
Dietrich Ends closer era is upon us.
no, I think the Tyler Wells closing era.
Oh, okay. So he had a rehab outing, I think, 2 days ago. So apparently that went well.
Yeah.
So hopefully he comes back
I
before
mean,
the end
I
of the
think they'll go through 20 pitchers.
open tryouts
Yeah.
to see who wants to make an impression.
Alex
Alex Pham,
Pham
there you go. Your
will
boy.
come up for some. Anyway, I think we're sort of
I can't hear you, Stan. Can you hear me?
I hit something with
Okay,
my
there you go.
papers
Okay,
and it
now I can
turned
hear
the
you.
audio off. Um, and the way this show's going, maybe the audio should have been off much earlier. Luke, seriously,
And now
do you have
it's funny that you say that. Now I understand why we stop at 30 minutes.
yeah,
It's really
yeah.
went off the deep.
Well, just there was so much to cover tonight on
Oh,
who they
I had one
acquired.
more question for. What do you think about the Mullins fit with the Mets?
I think he fits very well there. I think Cedric, first of all, Jeff McNeil, God bless him, is a nice little gritty ball player,
Mhm.
but not a center fielder,
Right.
you know. Will Cedric will light up City Field in terms of his defense. I think they will be somewhat shocked when he has to throw the ball, in a
I so my yeah.
meaningful way. But he will cover a lot of ground out there in City Field. He'll make a lot of plays. And I have a feeling it just looks like he's somehow during this whole experience of waiting to get traded, I think he loosened up or something. And he looks like he's on a little bit of a good time with his offense.
So he's a very streaky player. His seasons are roller coasters, right? I
Yeah.
mean, there are some serious peaks and valleys, and for the Mets' sake, you're hoping that they're starting to catch him on a good streak
Yep.
because he's been really good this month, and particularly since the deadline, he's been really, really solid. And so if they're catching him on a good stretch, he can help them. There's no
Yeah,
doubt. I mean, when he's going well, he looks like a top five center fielder. When he's going bad, it looks like he's never picked up a bat before. I
yeah.
mean, it is really a roller coaster with him over 162 games.
The Mets, by the way, picked up Gregory Soto. They picked up the Rogers from the Giants. Is that Taylor Rogers, the submarine guy?
Yeah, the
They all have
right-handed submarine.
they
Yeah.
all have T's. Taylor, Tanner. So they picked him up, and then they picked up Ryan Helsley,
Yep.
and then they picked up Cedric Mullen. I think their preference was Luis Robert, but the White Sox, I don't think they. I think they wanted the White Sox to eat some of that money,
Hmm.
and I don't think the White Sox were
And
going to
I don't
give
think
them.
Robert was a really good player in 2023, and he's one of those guys who looks like an all-star coming off the bus.
Yeah,
And I think that they were trying to sell him as, that 2023 Robert, it's still in there.
yeah,
And I don't know if other teams really bought it at that price that they were selling. That's all.
yeah.
And
I,
so he's
I,
still a White Sox.
he's still a White Sox. Yep, yep. And it'll be interesting to see if he makes it on the White Sox. Do you have any observations about what teams really improved themselves? Do you think the Phillies did enough?
I
They
would
picked
have
up.
liked to have seen the Phillies do a little bit more. They needed, so when I watched the Phillies for the most part, the bottom half of that lineup's pretty soft, and I would have loved to have seen them do more than Harrison Bader to help out that lineup. They
Yeah,
did need a right-handed hitting outfielder. I was hoping, maybe there were another team that was turned off by the Robert Price,
yeah,
but I mean, the Phillies are the same team that they were, a couple weeks ago, where they're going to lean heavily on that starting rotation into October. Because remember, they don't have Alvarado. I mean, Duran and Alvarado, that would be a killer combination in October.
yeah.
But I did really like the Duran pickup.
They will get
Um,
Alvarado back for the regular season.
yes, but
He'll
not
come back in
not
about
this
another
postseason.
20 days.
Duran, uh, I think he gives them exactly what they need, like an alpha closer, and he's not a rental. They've got him for 2 more years after this. They didn't give up a ton, nothing that's likely to come back to bite them. And I think that was perfect fit. I just would have loved to see them get maybe like a Ramon Laureano type, someone who could really help their lineup.
Interesting, the Texas Rangers picked up Danny Colome, Phil Mattone or Matten, and Merrill Kelly. I thought the Merrill Kelly was a terrific
Mhm.
pickup, and that would have been somebody I would have loved to see the Orioles try and, at a certain point, you're going to have to get some starting pitching for 26. You're
Yeah,
talking as if you're going to be a contender next
right.
year, and the cupboard is kind of bare on starting pitching. And
Yeah,
the price just goes up and up for it on the
right.
free agent market.
Mhm.
To be honest with you, the free agents out there this year, there's not a ton of them that are great.
There really isn't. I
Yeah.
mean, it's Ranger Suarez, Dylan Cease, Framber Valdez, and then after that, it's Brandon Woodruff, Zach Gallen.
And and
Gallen's had a really rough year.
and Woodruff has an option that the Brewers might exercise. I think it's a mutual option.
I don't think it's a great starting pitching market.
Yeah. And of course, my guy, Dustin May, who they could have acquired, he still would have been a free agent. The Orioles wouldn't even have been able to qualify him because he would have been traded in the middle of his last season. And Dustin May, if he pitches well for Boston, there ain't a chance in hell they'll let him go.
Hmm. Hmm.
Or or the team we'll be competing with, if they want to let him go, will probably be the Los Angeles Dodgers. Who's going to win that bidding?
Not the Orioles.
Not the Orioles. New issue of Press Box will be out in about what, 10 days, Luke? About 17 days,
No,
18 days.
no. It's going to be out August 13th, so that's about 14 days.
August 13th?
Yeah.
Wow. We've never come out before the 14th.
Well, it
All
was
right.
either that or the 20th, and
Okay.
John wanted to go on the 13th, so
No,
we're
I
on the
agree.
13th.
I
Yeah.
agree with that. What happened to the dates in between though, like the 15th or 16th?
I think John likes to come out on Wednesday, right? That's what we've decided, right?
I never
Okay,
remember. Okay,
I think John and Jen like to come out on Wednesday.
okay. Well,
So,
whatever John wants, John gets.
well, no, whatever Jen wants, Jen, right?
That's a good point. That's a good. All right. We've taken people behind the veil now at press box. All right, that's going to do it. Where's your Henny button?
Oh, it's not on my desk, but I have it.
Okay, you have it. You happy you got it?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
I
By the way,
I have my a hat right there. I'll put it on the hat.
by the way, Luke and I have gone the last, is it 4 years or 5 years that we've gone to
4 or 5. Yeah.
Mike Loxley's barbecue. It's a media barbecue that he has every late July. And it's interesting. It's always the night before the first practice, it
Yeah.
seems like now. And we got a chance to meet the athletic director, the new
Yep.
athletic director, Jim Smith. And I was very impressed with Jim Smith.
Yep. Yep.
Uh,
He's got to have a
big,
tall task ahead of him, but best of luck to him. Best wishes.
yeah, yeah. Very happy. And we wish Mike Loxley the best. It's going to be a tough season, but he's got a young team, and I think he likes his guys. All right, that's going to wrap it up for tonight. We've been brought to you by the Costas Inn, this trade deadline edition of Pressbox Live. Luke and I and Ross Grimsley will be back with you next Monday. So hang in there. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.